our next speaker is Cheryl Nelson from the DNR.
All right, thanks so much. Good evening, everyone. We're so excited, well, shouldn't say excited, happy to be here to give some information on forest health considerations of, unfortunately, all of the storm damage that's occurred. First of all, just so you know, we do recommend focusing on removing any of your damaged pine stands, and I'll get into some of the reasons why in just a little bit. But where possible, in working with your forester to evaluate all of your trees, your land, all of that, will be able to help you make some decisions regarding what to do moving forward. So where you can, it's best to wait in certain conditions if areas weren't damaged too much, because then you'll be able to see how the trees react. Again, may not be what you can do in all areas, but definitely something to think about. We want to recommend prioritizing that cleaning up of all of the ground debris, especially in pine stands, and I'll get to that in a second. And just so you know, after aerial surveys, we saw that on state-managed lands, there were almost 1 million acres that were impacted. So quite a lot, and we're still waiting to see what numbers are for private lands. And then also just what we can do moving forward to assist. And why are we recommending the pine management? Sorry, I'm not used to a microphone. So what happens is we have native bark beetles. They're the little bugs that get into your trees. They climb up and down just underneath the bark. If you pull the bark back, you'll see all those little tunnels like that center photo. They're called galleries or tunnels where the larvae from the insect get in and chew up and down. They don't tunnel into the wood. Those are the boring type beetles. What happens with native species is that sometimes the populations might expand to a certain amount that they can outcompete what's around healthy trees, get in, whereas normal populations, they're always around. It's invasive species that once they get in, they can affect healthy trees, which then is very damaging. So just know that these bark beetles are native species. It's just if there's enough debris, more than normal, which is what we're going to see from all of this storm damage, they're going to be able to get in, have multiple generations per year, and then that buildup is what's going to be able to affect healthy trees moving forward. So prioritize that pine management, especially red pine, which we know is economically one of the most important species in the state. Also, those bark beetles can carry what's called blue stain fungus. So they carry the spores, and as they're moving through the tree, those spores get in. And if you've ever seen some of the down wood that has a blue or greenish color to it, it's because the bark beetles have gotten in and the spores have gotten through the wood to start making those colors, which can reduce the amount that you'll get for any pine that's sold. So avoid piling the log debris. If you do have some that needs to stay on site, try and break it up. Go ahead and we want it to dry out because anything that's fresh has moisture to it. That's what's drawing those bark beetles in. If you are going to pile it up, please be careful during fire season. So make sure that it's safe to do any sort of burning or burn in your campfire pit. That anything that's going to help dry out that wood. So, let's see here. And then also during, especially pine management, red pine, multiple thinnings that come in every certain amount of years, there is what's called heterobasidium root disease, HRD for short. This is, it's a fungal infection. It's a fungal disease that once it gets into the wood, the spores land on those freshly cut stumps. Those stumps are viable for up to 3 or 4 days unless the treatment is applied to it. So what happens is that fungal disease gets in and will kill back the trees, and it moves through root grafts. So red pine trees will root graft to each other, and where you have those high densities, it'll continue to move through. So on state land, we do have in our contracts, within 5 miles of a known location, it is recommended that either Cellutreat, which is the only product available right now, is applied to those fresh cut stumps, or there's just a couple months during January through, I want to say March, but I'm not sure, during the winter when the spores are not viable because it's too cold for them. So be aware that what you're seeing here is the fungus. It's brown on top, white margins. Underneath it has pores, not gills, and it is a harder conch to it. So this, again, it will continue to move through, killing back the trees, so be aware of it, look for it, and adjustments can be made. Of the 12 county area in the disaster zone, we do know of 1 point in Montmorency County and multiples in Emmett County. You can go to our online HRD viewer through michigan.gov/forest health and take a look and see if there's any in your county, in your area. So next, anyone can tell me what this is. This tree is a red oak, so red oaks have pointed leaf tips. What happens is this disease gets in and will kill a red oak tree within 4 to 6 weeks. Who can tell me what this disease is? Oak wilt. So for all of you that got it, awesome. Why this is a concern? Because April 15th through July 15th is the recommended no prune or wound your oak trees dates, especially your red oaks. White oaks can get it, but they can compartmentalize the fungus much easier than the red oaks do. So right now, May and June, we are in the peak season for oak wilt dispersal. Oak wilt is spread over land by these little nididulid beetles that they're sap feeders, so they get in these little cracks, which you can see the cracks in the bark, that those pressure pad spore mats from the fungus create. They do what the name implies. They put pressure on the bark, forcing it outward, creating little cracks. The beetles get in, pick up spores. They fly to a newly wounded red oak tree as though the pheromones go out. So they can arrive within minutes. And that's how spores get spread over land. And then once that tree is infected, if nothing is done to get rid of it, then the fungus can continue spreading through the root grafts to other red oak trees. So where possible, avoid doing any sort of management where your oaks are this time of year. Where you can, and you have to, put a tree wound dressing or any sort of latex-based paint on those wounds. And where you just absolutely, with the damage that's around, you can't do anything with those oaks, then your next best thing is to keep an eye out for oak wilt symptoms. What that looks like is the leaves will start to droop. They'll get wilty. They'll look like a tomato plant that hasn't been watered in 2 weeks in 80 degrees. They're just going to be drooping, and then they'll fall from the tree. So those leaves, the majority of that canopy will be on the ground in the middle of summer. We say it looks like fall in the middle of summer. It looks like you need to go rake your leaves, and you're wondering why. So keep an eye out for that. We also have an online excuse me. We also have an online oak wilt viewer that you can go and check those points. I need to hurry up. So northern hardwoods, this is the third one, and we're getting through. Just try and keep an eye on those. I've seen a lot of damage when I was driving around the area today, but again, work with a forester, try and see what you might be able to hold off on. Evaluate how the crown is. Are the leaves out? I did see a lot of leaves coming out today, so that was really nice because your forester is going to look at how much of that crown has died back. Are there any leaves left? Are there more or not? So that's all site specific. And then your sugar maples, can also get a blue stain from other beetles carrying the spores and all that too. So just know that, there's a lot of things to keep an eye out for, a lot of potential impacts. Couple of things real quick. In your pine stands, You can watch for heterobasidian root disease, but also for a couple of native species issues. Again, the bark beetles, normally not a problem, but if there's a lot of piling up of a lot of debris, all of that, then you might get some issues moving forward. You'll see those little round exit holes. And then armillaria is a fungus that it's native, but it will affect trees that are stressed and then kind of take over. So does anybody love eating the honey mushrooms? Do you go out and hunt for mushrooms? That's what the armillaria species is. It's a choice edible. And then when we get into the oak stands, you might see a lot of stressed trees that also will get different little beetles coming in, especially two-line chestnut borer, and then they also can get that armillaria root rot. And I'm going to hurry up here. Watch for things like invasive plants. I don't know how many of you have seen autumn olive, but when it gets into a stand, you can get rid of it when there's not a lot in the beginning. But after it takes over, if you saw all the trillium that are out blooming today, you will not see it if autumn olive takes over in a stand or an area. So keep an eye out for other impacts. And then other invasive insects like Asian longhorn beetle, especially in your maples. And know that we do have a really good lookalike called the white-spotted pine sawyer beetle, which I think are absolutely adorable. And they have that little white spot right behind their head. But go ahead and report it to us, take photos, anything out there that looks different or weird, we're happy to take a look at and go forward. If you didn't know, michigan.gov/MSP for Michigan State Police gives you a lot of different resources. Once you scroll down, those debris disposal sites, as well as donations to help out those who were impacted, maybe don't have a home. You can find out what they're taking and other things. So our Forest Health webpage, michigan.gov/Forest Health. You can see the bottom two will take you to those online viewers showing known locations of both oak wilt and heterobasidian root disease, and know that there is more on the landscape than what we have reported or confirmed to us. So, and with that, just keep an eye out on the invasive species webpage, Association of Conservation Districts, the SISMAs, which do a lot with invasive plants, and MISIN, Midwest Invasive Species Information Network, to learn about a lot of different invasives, and then my contact information, so happy to help with anything. And with that, thanks. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next up is Bryce Metcalf.